Hello, everybody. Welcome to our show. And this week we're going to celebrate on this show a sensational new book. It's the story of our guest star. I've read the book and I recommend it to all of you. And I'm going to paraphrase from something she wrote in her book. She's a movie star. Her concerts are all sellouts. She's been named Country Music Entertainer of the Year. Her albums are platinum. Her face is everywhere. Her boobs are everywhere. And her name is a household word. Ladies and gentlemen, Dolly Parton. Hello, baby.
How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you. You look beautiful.
Thank you. Shall we sit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, and hello, Ralph.
How are you?
I'm just great. Looking
Well,
forward to
welcome
this.
you to our show here.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on the success of it. But then everything you do is good. And I've been on every show you've ever had since you were little.
That's right, you have, when we were both little.
Certainly since we were young.
I love your book.
Well, thank you very much. I worked very hard on that and tried to be as honest and as open as I could and not hang myself for somebody else.
Why did you write a book?
Well, a lot of people are very interested in my life, and I'm almost 50 now, and I have lived a very full life, and I started when I was 10, and I thought, well, I want to write this book before I forget. So it's like I say in the book, I think I have the CRN disease already, can't remember nothing, but I forget it, that's what it means. But anyhow, I just really felt like there were a lot of people that wanted to know a little more in detail about a lot of things about my life that I just kind of graze over in interviews, things you really can't get all that involved with, and I just really took the time to do it while I remembered, because I figured next 50 years I'll write another one.
Well, now, your associate, Don Warden, told me you had been writing on this book for 10 years.
Well, I have. I have actually, the last three, seems like that's about all I've done, even though I have been doing other work. But the last 3 years, night and day, any spare moment I've had, had it put together. But I planned it, and we started making the deal on it about 10 years ago.
And you wrote this?
Yes.
You didn't, this is not as told to someone?
No, this is, I had angel writers, but actually this is my story. I think you certainly have read the book, and you can very well tell that only I would know those stories.
And you never lost your sense of humor. It's
Thank
sprinkled,
the Lord.
It's sprinkled all the way through the book. The other thing I found about very compelling about the book, it's very spiritual.
Well, I grew up in a very religious family, which led me to be very spiritual, but I have always had a great faith in God. I really think that my faith in God has been my strength and has carried me over all the hurdles that I've had to go through. And I just love the idea of God. I love the spirit of things, and I love the God core in all people and the light that I see in people and in things. So that is what I hold on to for my strength. I'm rowdy, I'm playful, I'm passionate, and I'm full of it. But I just figure I am the way God made me, and I feel like being true to myself and my own personality, I think, has been very important. And I hope I don't offend anybody, but I really feel like I have a great communication with God as I perceive Him, and that is where I find my strength.
All right, I'm going to go for one of the questions you answer in the book. But a lot of people want to know about you. Did you have plastic surgery?
Well, yes, I have had several little things done through the years. And, of course, we're a little older now than we used to be. But I'm not ashamed of that at all. I think it's wonderful that we have great doctors, and I think God works through all people, especially talented, gifted people. But I've had several little things done, and several big ones. But anyway, I just really feel like, all of you know how important it is to feel good about yourself.
Right.
And in my book, I tried to be as honest as I could possibly be. I think it's important that you be, and if I was going to take the money that I got for writing the book, I figured the least I could do is be as honest as I could be and still be able to walk around, But I tried to be fair and honest. Not only did I talk about having plastic surgery, I even gave numbers and names of people that actually are good, because I think it's terrible if you're going to have something done to just get some quack or somebody that's not capable of doing it. You really need to be very careful about anything you do. But like I say, I haven't had anything drastic done, but I guess in the scheme of things, you know, just, well, I don't know what else to say, but yes. You know.
Okay, all right. Ain't you got no gingerbread? Ain't you got no candy?
Ain't you got an extra bed for me and little Andy? Patty cake, a baker's man, my mommy ran away again. And we was all alone and didn't know what we could do. I wondered if you'd let us stay with you.
Oh, that's good. Now,
that's one of them sad songs I've written. That may be plumb pitiful, as Patsy Sledge would say.
I want to go back into your childhood. There's a lady in the book named Aunt Martha, and I gathered that that song was born when you met Aunt Martha, because didn't you go to her house and say, "Ain't you got no gingerbread"?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us who Aunt Martha was.
Well, Aunt Martha Williams, we called her Martha, M-A-R-T-H, but her name was Martha. She was a lady that owned the farm that my father was living on and sharecropping when I was born. We lived in a little cabin on the banks of the Little Pigeon River, and she had a big house over from us. And she was my very first memory. I remember Aunt Martha before I even remember Mom and Daddy, because I used to go climb up on her porch, and she used to bake gingerbread, and that's why that was always my excuse to go down there, is look and say, "Ain't you got no gingerbread?" They always used to laugh at me saying that. But she had real bad asthma. She was this old lady that lived alone, and she had a real hard time breathing, and she used to burn some sort of brown substance in these lids that she'd sit around the house. And her house had this real eerie smoke. That was before electricity. And in the evenings, I just remember that smell and the sight. And she had this big spinning wheel in her house. It was like, so it was sights and sounds and smells that are so impressionable to little children. But she used to set me on her legs and trot me up and down that, you know, and she'd sing.
What was the song?
She'd say, "Tiptoe, tiptoe, little Dolly Parton, tiptoe, tiptoe, ain't she fine? Tiptoe, tiptoe, little Dolly Parton, she's got a red dress, she's got 9. She's got a red dress, she's got 9. She's got a red dress just like mine." And I was just so fascinated that she would know this song that had my name in it. You know? Of course, I mean, it's like, I thought, well, you know, but then like I said in the book, but then you know, I felt like a special little girl because she made me special. So why wouldn't there be a song with my name in it? But she was precious, and when she died, it was like a really bad thing, as I talk about in the book. And some people, I was little, and of course I had grown a few years before she passed away, but they had her in her house, and these boys in the country had held me up and made me touch her in the coffin, and they told me all these horrible stories about this person that I dearly loved. And they told me that, well, anyway, I don't want to go through all that stuff. That's all in the book. But anyhow, it really gave me a horrible fear of death, and I just never was able to look at dead people, you know, after that, when they were already dead.
What do you remember about January the 19th, 1946?
Well, I don't remember nothing. That was the day I was born.
The doctor got a sack of cornmeal for delivering you?
Yes, I talk it in the book about the day I was born. It was snowing, and we lived way back in the hills, and we had this doctor that was also a minister. And he served as doctor. He was kind of like a missionary that had been sent to the Appalachian Mountains. And he was such a fine man, but they had sent for him. And my dad didn't have money to pay for him, as most people in that part of the country couldn't pay with money. So they'd give him canned goods. And so I was paid for with a sack of cornmeal. And so I always said I've been raking in the dough ever since.
There are some wonderful stories in this book about your mother and your daddy. Some really interesting stories about your daddy.
My daddy's a character, but my mom is too, and they're totally opposite.
Tell these folks the story about the Stones. I thought your mother developed a wonderful way to handle all her kids. You know the Stones and the Soup?
Oh, sure. I know the story. In fact, I believe that there is an old fable or some old story from years way, way back, because I'm not certain about that. I just assumed that it was something my mama had, you know, read or something. But my mother was also this very creative, special person. And with a house full of kids, first of all, there's 12 of us. There's 6 girls and 6 boys, and we all had lots of needs. And you know yourself how hard it is for a parent to pay attention to one or two, much less a house full. But Mama always made no difference in any of us. She seemed to love and care for us all in the same way, as did my daddy. But Mama seemed to always sense when one of us needed more attention than the other. So she used to always do things like this one particular thing she did, and we still do today with the grandkids, but she used to tell us to go out and find a stone. We were going to make stone soup. So we'd go and find the best rock that we could find, the smoothest, best one, river rocks. Little river rocks were great. And so she would pick out of the best rock to put in the soup that day. And the soup was always so much better because it had that rock in it. You know, stone soup is like to this day.
Didn't she pick the child's rock that she felt needed the most attention?
Yes.
At that moment?
At that moment. She always knew who that was, or if someone was just feeling down or low or just needed extra attention. She just always knew. But Mama did a lot of things like that, just like my little coat of many colors that she made. She knew that I needed the coat, and evidently she knew that I needed that extra attention, and she really made that a big deal, taking all these scraps and making this coat out of all the scraps. She used to do all these quilts, make quilts for our beds. And so she told me the story of Joseph and went through the whole thing. And boy, I just couldn't wait to get to school to wear that, because I just knew I looked like Joseph. But when I got to school, of course, it wasn't as beautiful as Mama had painted the picture, and the kids all laughed at me and broke my heart, and I was upset and mad at Mama because I thought somehow she had deceived me, and it was just a really bad time. But Mother was always like just special, and she always said, you know, I went home and I said, Mama, you said my coat was special. And the kids said we were poor and these were just rags. And she said, we are not poor. She said, you be proud of that coat and you wear it with pride. We are not poor. There's a lot of people in this world a lot worse off than we are. And that was true, and that was her attitude. So she wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself. She was right about the fact that...
Kids gave you a hard time, though, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but kids do that without meaning to. All children are like that without knowing. We were just extra poor kids, and this was after we had moved out of the area where everybody was poor. And we were going then to a school where some of the children had better clothes and had, you know, finer things to eat than we did to take to school. But it was, children don't know they're being cruel, but it can really hurt. I think most everybody can relate to hard times or to some embarrassing moment, whether you're poor financially or not. There's something about your physical self or somebody making fun, or whether you know, there's things going on. So I think that's why people love that particular song. I think they relate to it.
Well, while we are at that point in our program, you actually have 2 books coming out.
Yes, both for HarperCollins.
Tell me about this.
Well, this little book, they took the song of The Coat of Many Colors, and it is a story, of course, and we did it and made our first little children's book. I'm going to be writing a lot of children's stories through the years, and I'll be writing a series of children's books, and I'll be doing TV specials and videos and albums and things for kids, because I love kids, and they relate to my name and to my little squeaky voice and, you know, everything. So, but I just love kids.
Well, it's a beautiful book.
Well,
and it also is available at your favorite bookstore.
Yeah.
In addition to the
they'll sell these a lot. They'll use this in Sunday school classes and stuff too, because it really talks about, you know, one is only poor only if they choose to be. It's kind of a philosophy, and it's about parents and just the, you know, like it's not about money. It's about the quality of the human being.
Wonderful stories in this book, and a lot of characters that you met along the way, like Sawdust.
Oh, he was amazing. In fact, he was one of the people that I patterned my song Applejack from. I had an uncle, too, it was a cross between the two. I had this old uncle that used to also play the banjo. But old Sawdust was this character. I think there's everybody in every town has some character, the town character. And he was just this old man that lived by himself up in the woods, not far from us. And he was just this character of the world, had all these old hunting dogs. He lived with these dogs, and everybody used to tell all these awful stories, you know, about him and his dogs, that he was loving on the dogs and all that stuff. Well, he did love his dogs, but it was just, you know, and he stunk. Oh, because it's like he never bathed, but he didn't have to. You know, it's like you could go by him on the road in a car with the windows rolled up and you could smell him. But there was one thing we had in common, and that was music. After I found out that he was a musician, he used to play this banjo. I got to going down there, boy. It's like I got used to the smell, and I guess he did too.
Did he teach you?
We didn't smell too good either. But anyway, he taught me a lot of things on the banjo, and he had been in the war, and he taught me a lot about a world beyond the Smoky Mountains, and how it was all right to be different too.
Your daddy worked very hard and loved his kids, didn't he?
Oh, my daddy, that's one thing about the Parton family. They love their kids better than anything in the world, especially the men. I don't know if it's just an extension of themselves or just that fatherly thing, but my daddy would kill anybody over one of his youngins.
You were sharecropping on the, I guess, on the first place.
Yeah, it ain't Martha's place.
And then you bought a place, and it was really overgrown. All the fences had fallen down, and I guess it was a wreck.
It was. My daddy worked really hard to get it cleaned up, too. And he had to dig all the stumps out himself. Nobody offered to help when he was working on it. And this is a story they tell in our family, which I've always loved. And so after sweating and heaving and hoeing over it for, actually a couple of years it took him to really do the fences and everything. So when he finally got looking pretty good, this preacher came by one day and he said, "Boy, this sure is a nice looking place you and the Lord's got here, Lee." Daddy said, "Yeah, you ought to seen this SOB when the Lord had it by itself."
Oh. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Sevier County High School.
Did you like it?
I hated school. I hated school from the day I started till the day I graduated. I just never... Well, I was a dreamer, first of all. I wanted to move. I wanted to get on to Nashville and be a star and be on the Ralph Emery early morning show. Yeah. But I wanted to I just wanted to go and be with my dreams, I guess. And I wasn't really able to study in school because we couldn't take our books home. We had work to do. We had too many kids. They'd tear up the books, and Daddy'd have to pay for them. He couldn't afford it, so we couldn't bring our books home. So we didn't have any decent clothes to wear. So in those early days, I didn't get a really good start. None of us did. I don't think any of us liked school because we had we were kind of embarrassed and uncomfortable.
Now, along the way, I think when you were about 10 or 11, didn't you get a show business break? Didn't you start singing in Knoxville?
Yes, I started singing on a show called The Kaz Walker Show. This gentleman, who's also another character in my life, he owned a chain of supermarkets. You're familiar with him, and Chet and a lot of the people that we know are born and raised in that part of the country knew him very well. And he had a competitive show. They had the Midday Merry-Go-Round and then the Kaz Walker Show on the other end of town. He had a TV show and a radio show that was broadcast actually the TV show was on twice a week, and then the radio show was on every day. So I started singing there, and he would advertise his groceries, and I was 10, and that was like, my Uncle Bill had taken me down to Kaz's show. Bill was very responsible for helping me in those early days and even coming to Nashville. But Bill played this big red Gretsch guitar, and we have it in the museum at Dollywood now. But that was, I had my little guitar, my little Martin, that my Uncle Lewis had given me when I was young. And so I played my guitar and Bill played, and that was when the first time I was ever in front of a real live audience outside family and friends or church people. And I got this big response. I was 10 years old, and that's when I knew for sure that this was going to be my life's work, getting all that attention, which I desperately needed. I thought, well, I must be a star. But I understand now that it was just because I was little. But it worked out good.
One more Kaz Walker story, and that's the greasy pole story.
Oh, there's a lot to this story. In fact, that's when I was working with Kaz Walker. I was still a kid. And after I got to be pretty famous on the show, well, Kaz started taking me around different places where they would also go out and do personal appearances on Saturday nights. Well, Kaz, in order to advertise groceries, would always come up with all these gimmicks. Well, he had what they called the greasy pole. It was this big pole, like just a light pole, put up in the middle of the theater that they had put there, and they greased it. And then he had money at the top of the pole, and every week, the money would increase if nobody reached it in a certain period of time. Well, there was $250 it had got up to, and I was going to get that money. And I was pretty much still a tomboy at the time, so I had went outside, And I had wet myself down in the creek there, and I wallered around in the dirt and the grit and got myself all greedy. And when it come time, well, I went up that pole and I got all the way to the top and got that money. Well, no, that's not, but as Bill Carlisle would say, no, that's not good. Because I was also singing on the show, a lot of people thought that I didn't deserve to have the money, that it was rigged or fixed some way. And Kaz got up and said, how in the hell can you rig a greasy pole? He said if the young'un was smart enough to get out there and roll in the dirt, and I didn't tell nobody they couldn't roll in the dirt, she deserves the money. So anyway, they didn't particularly like it, but I got the money, and we didn't have a television. I was on television before we even owned one. And we had moved out, and we had electricity then, but we didn't have a TV. And I bought our first TV with that money. And all the neighbors from everywhere that didn't have TV would come to watch Gunsmoke. I mean, we would sit and watch the test pattern. You know, it's like there was, at that time, it would only go to midnight. We'd just sit and look at that ugly Indian, you know, and the black and white lines and all. We'd even stay up sometimes and watch them.
One day you became a senior.
Yep.
And they asked all the seniors, what are you going to do with your life? What did you say?
I said, I'm going to go to Nashville and be a star.
And what did they, how did they react?
Well, they started laughing because all the kids that had got up, they were saying, I'm going to Carson Newman College, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be this. And to me, it was just as natural. That's exactly what I was going to do. But for some reason, it was like my dream. I didn't even think that there was anything wrong with that. I guess it seemed like an arrogant or a, I don't know what. I just said I was going to Nashville to be a star, and they all sniggered and laughed, and it hurt my feelings really bad, but it was a great inspiration. I thought, you just don't know, do you? I'll show you. So every time I would start to, you know, lose heart or something, I'd just think, oh, I've got to do it now. You know, I just have to do it now.
I met Dolly through Carl and Pearl Butler. They came to me one day and they said, and Carl and Pearl were really on a roll in those days. They had a lot of big hit records.
Yeah, they were very good to me always.
And they said, we've got this little girl. She just graduated from high school over in East Tennessee, and she's really good. Would you use her on your television show? Well, Carl and Pearl were old friends of mine, and I said, sure, yeah, bring her out. And you came out, and I think you sang George Jones' You Gotta Be My Baby.
That was my biggie. That was my big number that I sang on Kaz Walker, and the first song I sung on the Grand Ole Opry. And you used to make me sing all these songs. Remember, I used to sing You Is My Sunshine. And, oh, I thought I was really singing soul music, and you'd just get a big kick out of it. I was embarrassing myself now. I think, Lord, I can't believe I used to sit there and sing all those crazy songs.
Well, I thought you were sensational.
Well, you always treated me great, and I'll always appreciate you for that. That's why I'm always glad to get to do your show no matter where you are.
I think you went to the Uncle Bill again. It took you to the Grand Ole Opry, and you pestered people to try to get you a spot.
That was early on. That was before we came here. That
was it?
Yeah, that was much earlier. That was when I was about 13, 12 or 13. And it was hard to get on the Grand Ole Opry. You had to be in the union. You had to have someone give up their spot. And Jimmy C. Newman was nice enough to give up one of his spots, and Johnny Cash was the person that introduced me that night. And Johnny, first time I saw him, that's when that's when he was lean and lanky, and that's when I first realized what sex appeal was. I was 13 years old. It was like, oh, it was like, holy moly, what is this? And then little did I know that he'd be the first person to introduce me.
What did you say to Johnny Cash when you first met him?
I didn't say anything. My mouth just flew open. Well, first I had seen him on stage, and I had all these feelings, which now I know is just being horny. But I guess we could. Well, it was a sex appeal or something. I don't know if that's exactly the word. That's what I was, but I mean I don't know if that would describe all I felt. It was like he just had this great charisma and this great charm, and when he came out the door, we were waiting to talk to him. Me and my uncle, we weren't too proud to say anything to anybody, and. So when Johnny came out the door, it was just like, and I just was standing there staring at him, and it's like, well, of course, I make some jokes in there that some of the stuff's not good for TV, better read, but it's along the same lines.
All right, now your Uncle Bill is writing with you, and you wrote a song, I think Bill Phillips recorded, called Put It Off Until Tomorrow. And you sang the harmony with Bill. And you had the Song of the Year in 1966, and you were just barely off the boat.
Well, that was a song that we were very proud of. That was the very first time we'd ever won an award. My name wasn't on that record as a singer. It was as a writer, in that small little print underneath the song. But all the DJs around the country, well, Bill Phillips, first of all, was the man. He was on Decca Records at that time. And he had asked if the same girl that was singing on the demo, which was me, we had sent the song to him. He'd had a couple of other hits at that time, I guess, not that big. You used to play, in fact, you're the one of the ones very responsible for breaking that record, put it off. And anyway, so Bill Phillips said, I want the same girl that's singing on that demo to sing the harmony with me. I was on Monument Records at that time with Fred Foster, and I'd been wanting to record country music, but Fred was recording me rockabilly, which, you know, he put a lot into my career, had a lot of faith in me and helped me out. But at that time, my voice was small, and he thought I'd do better doing rockabilly. But I kept saying, no, let me do country, let me do country. So when this song, Put It Off Until Tomorrow, came out, all the disc jockeys from all around the country were calling, saying, who is this girl on this record, calling Decca Records? And it was me. And they were saying I should have a career of my own. So then I went to Fred and, you know, they said I should sing, and so he let me, and that's...
Yeah, you had a lot of vibrato in your voice on that first record. What,
yes.
Happy Birthday, Baby, or something like that?
Yeah, well, I still have a lot of that little trembly thing that I try not to do a lot. After Fred saw that there, you know, maybe I could sell country, he found a song for me that Curly Putman wrote called Dumb Blonde.
Dumb Blonde.
Just because I'm blonde, don't think I'm dumb, because this dumb blonde ain't nobody's fool. And that became my first chart record, and that was in '65.
And Porter Wagoner heard you singing Dumb Blonde. He had seen you on my television show, and Norma Jean was leaving his show, and he had to replace her. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, Porter took you to RCA. And I'll get back to Porter later. But at RCA, you met a man who was not only a music executive, he was one whale of a guitar player, and he's here.
Yes, he's from up home, and he's my friend, and I love him.
Talking about the godfather of the guitar, Chet Atkins.
Yay!
Hello, Chester.
How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Boy, am I the lucky one.
Absolutely.
I won't be forgetting that anytime soon.
What we're going to do, we're going to take a little break, my friends, and then we're going to come back and have some fun with Chet and sing and pick and that sort of thing. So stay with us, Chet. Chet, do you recall how you became involved in Dolly's life?
Yes, I do. The first time I ever heard of her, Grant Turner brought me a tape. It was a little round, one of those little round tapes, and played it for me. And I said, how old is she, and so on. And he said, she's 11, I believe. I said, hell, she's got to get an education first.
That's right. You sent me back home.
Sent her to school. Now here she is.
He was
Smart.
really, you had just started, I guess, with RCA at the time. In fact, you were there all those years when Porter brought me there.
Oh, yeah. I went to RCA in '57. And the next time I heard her was when Porter came to office one day, and we were talking, and I said, who are you going to get to replace Norma Jean? And he said, Dolly Parton. I said, who's that? Because I'd forgotten about meeting her. And he said, she writes and sings for Fred Foster. And being a competitor like I was, I said, well, can you get her off Monument and get her on RCA? And he said, yeah, I think I can. And I have guilt feelings about that now when I'm around Fred. But anyway.
Oh, Fred forgives us. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So I sent and got a contract. Now, I think Porter probably got you to sign it. I don't remember you signing it in my presence, did you?
I don't remember that either. I just remember I was...
Probably gave it to Porter.
I was too excited, and I was very appreciative of you and Porter Wagner.
But I remember when she had, along about the time she had the Bill Monroe song.
Mule Skinner Blues.
Yeah. We'd sit around that table and say, when is Dolly Parton going to be #1? She's the best singer in the business.
Oh, sure.
And we'd say... well, we got to make her get rid of those wigs.
With that big hair, yeah.
That shows how smart we were, and she was way ahead of us.
Chet, do you recall the first time you ever performed with her?
Well, we made a record together, and she told me she loved me on the end of it. She says, I love you, hee hee, and
I love you, hee hee.
Do I Ever Cross Your Mind?
Yeah, years ago we did a, was that on my album or yours? Was your album? Yeah.
Chet Atkins and Friends.
Yeah, I wrote the song, and I remember singing with you. I didn't remember if it was on my record. But we, like I say, he grew up same place I did, up in East Tennessee. And we've just always had this bond between us and loved the same kind of music. And so not long ago, I had Chet come down and help and put a song down for me that when I did the theme song for the Beverly Hillbillies. I had about 4 different songs that I sent. They didn't choose this particular one we're going to do. But this song that we are going to sing today, at some point today, is a song that's in my new album. It's the Heart Songs Live from Home that I did up at Dolly.
It's a live album.
Live album, right.
You picked out a song. Well, it's in this album. You picked out a song for us to perform. I say us.
Us meaning I asked you to sing.
I have the bass line, and Chet doesn't think I can sing it, so I'll give it my best shot.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be just fine. In fact, this is such a fun song. Maybe later on, later in the song, we might even get the audience involved. But right now, we'll get it set up and see how.
He's pretty bad, folks. He's
well, it's supposed to be fun.
He's a little above below average.
Well, you go ahead. This is called Longer Than Always, a song I wrote a few years back.
Longer than always.
Longer than always. Yeah! Okay. And when the world has turned the last time, when it all has turned to dust, well, you can always turn to me. Pure gold will never rust. I will love you longer than always, longer than always. I love you longer than all. I'll sing it, Chet. Just right back into it now. I will love you longer than always, longer than always,
longer than always,
longer than always. Play one. Oh, that's good. Let's get them involved. Step your foot. Come on, snap your fingers. You want to do the dupes with me? Or with us? Oh, you're sounding good. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's good. Come on, I'll play the nails now. Do the bass. I will love you longer than always.
Longer than always.
Longer than always.
Longer than always.
Longer than always. Oh, I just keep wanting to sing that one. I will love you longer than always, longer than always, always. I will love you. Do-do-do-do. I think that's about as much do-do as I can say.
I can't slow down.
Okay.
That's fun.
Oh, that was just fun. You can tell we didn't practice, but it's better when you don't.
That's right.
Chet, have you got a problem with Dolly?
Have you got a problem?
Yeah, I have. But we can't talk about it here.
What?
Oh, the problem. There is a
Have
problem.
you heard from Chet?
Yes. Chet, you know, has sued me.
He sued you?
Yeah, and I keep
I
getting
can't
these.
believe that.
Yeah, he
You're
did.
such good friends.
I did, folks.
for sexual harassment. It's true. Well, see, this goes back a long way, and I talk about this in my book. You know, Porter and Chet and Ralph and all these great old folks from
great old
back
folks?
then. Well, yeah, all us great old folks. But anyway, ever since I started working with Porter, Porter told me years ago that Chet was real ticklish, real goosey. And so he never walks by me that I don't gouge him or pinch him or poke him somewhere. And
Where do you grab folks?
well, I usually, yeah, I grab him in the butt. So anyway, just going by and he, woo! And it's just always funny. So the last time I did it, we were doing the Tammy and Loretta and Dolly Honky Tonk Angels
video. She let me in
video.
her dressing room. I was the only one to let in, right?
Yes, in the video. I didn't even get in.
She wanted me to be alone with me.
Well, anyway, I gouged him. So the next week, I got this letter in the mail, and it's been like a running thing since then of us writing back and forth with our lawyers.
I'm going to sue her for $150.
But he said he'd be willing to work it out in trade.
Oh! There's no place, Red.
But it's only a joke for those of you out there. I can just see the tabloids now. Chad Atkins sues Dolly Parton for sexual harassment, but it's a guy. It's
I
his
kind of wanted to
harassment.
do that because of my I didn't want it to hurt the sales of my album, Read My Licks. So I wanted to get all that publicity out and say, I hope this doesn't hurt the sales of my new album, Read My Licks. But I'll say it here.
Okay. Well, I'll just pinch Ralph from now on. You're not the only ass in this town.
He'd love it.
I don't know how to follow that.
You go to commercial.
All right. Chester, thank you for coming and making this such an enjoyable time. I've loved this.
Oh, I love her. I'm so proud of her. I wrote her a letter once. In interviews and everything, she's way ahead of everybody, and she's so smart and bright and beautiful, and I love her like a sister. I really do. But I'm going to sue her maybe for a little bit. Ladies
Well, I
and
love
gentlemen,
you too.
Chet Atkins.
Yes.
We'll continue with Dolly right after this. Dolly, we've got a nice surprise for you. We have a dear friend of yours who is in Vegas, and he's going to be on live with us now via satellite. So please welcome Kenny Rogers.
Yay!
Hey, Dolly, how you doing? Hi, Ralph.
Can he see me?
Kenny,
Hi,
I can
Kenny.
hear you.
Kenny, can you
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Oh, I can see you. Hello there. You look pretty.
I've been listening to you guys for the last 10 minutes,
Oh.
and it sounds like you're having way too much fun.
We are. We're playing grab ass with Chet Atkins.
Gosh, I'm sorry I missed that.
Game show.
Oh, Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about yourself, Ralph?
I'm terrific. I wondered if you could recall when you first met Dolly.
I remember the first time I actually met her. I had obviously, as everyone has, seen Dolly around the business, and I don't know when she had a television show called Dolly, and the word I got was that she was having trouble getting people to perform on this, and I had just come from the first edition, and I think had a hit of some sort. And when they called me, I was thrilled because, you know, just to be in the room with Dolly is always a thrill for anyone. And I mean, I know Dolly, I guess, as well as most people do, and she's such a pleasure. Anytime the thing I always say about Dolly is that there's not a more consistent person in this world. If you like what you see, you will love her when you meet her because that's what she is.
Nah. Well, thank you, Kenny.
She was doing a television show, and I came on and did a song with her, and then I guess I didn't see her again for about 5 or 6 years. And I would run into her from time to time at award shows where she was winning and I was walking by. It was kind of a trend we discovered.
Sure.
How did the idea of singing with Dolly develop?
We were in the studio with Barry Gibb doing the Islands in the Stream album. It was untitled at that point, but we were sitting around just trying to figure who could really do that song well. And it was actually Barry Gibb's idea to use her. And it was just such a an incredible, I think, chemistry that happened when she came in the studio. She was simply Dolly, which always adds such an incredible dimension to things. And the minute we started singing, I think both of us and everybody in the room knew that we had stumbled into something really special.
Do you two still tour together?
Not lately, but we loved it. The people have always associated us, even though we didn't do that many duets together. People think of us as big a duet as Porter and me were. It's like, when you going to be with Kenny? When? It's like they think we've been together forever because we made such a perfect couple, and I loved working with Kenny, and I have
We had some really good times.
Yes, we did.
And everywhere I go, consistently, I was out in Vegas yesterday, and I was having lunch, and a guy walked up to me, didn't ask how I was, didn't ask what was going on, said, "Where the hell is Dolly?" I said, "I don't know."
Well, it happens to me all the time, Kenny. People always ask like you're attached to me.
Now I know what to tell them, Dolly. You're in Nashville.
Okay, well, I'm happy to see you. This is great for you to stop by and say hey to us. How are you doing out there?
I'm doing great. Congratulations on your new book, too.
Well, thank you. I talked about you in it. I said very nice things about you because I meant them every one. I didn't tell about our love affair or nothing.
Okay, fine. Well,
I just talked about the good stuff.
Okay, well,
Has that been one of the rumors?
No, actually, nobody ever really linked me and Kenny together. I don't believe I've ever had anybody ask if we were romantically involved. And see, they've asked that about the others, so it was really me and Kenny that were involved, and not the others. It would have been nice, but we're just great friends. But actually, people don't bother us about that. I think they just assume that it's true.
I think that friendship
Kenny,
friendship is an amazing thing. You're more than welcome, Ralph, and I'm glad that I could be a part of this, and congratulations to you, Dolly. Nobody deserves everything. It's funny for me to watch you show up in different places. You have so many different sides, and you're so capable and gifted in all those areas, and it's fun for me to just see where you're going to pop up next.
Well, I may pop up out there tonight. I'll see you later on.
I'll be here. I'll be here.
Thanks, Kenny. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too, Dolly.
Thank you, Kenny. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ralph. See you later.
That was Kenny Rogers from Vegas. We'll be right back after this.
I smoke, but at many fast food restaurants, it's not a...
We're on the record with Dolly Parton. And Dolly has an exciting new book. In fact, it's her first book. And she wrote it herself. So you can go to the bank on what she writes in here. It's all true.
Maybe I can go to the bank, too, if you buy it.
Let's talk about the mystery man in your life, a man named Carl Dean. And Dolly, somehow I remember one of those mornings you did my morning television show in Nashville here on Channel 4. And I took you back over to around 8th Avenue in Wedgwood, where I think you had an apartment. And you were going to go to the Wishy-Washy that day. So I just dropped you off and I went on home. And then things began to take a new direction for you, didn't they?
I met another fine, good-looking man that day. The one that dropped me off and the one that picked me up. That one I've kept for 30 years now. That is Carl Dean. I met him, actually, it was when I first came to Nashville at the Wishy-Washy laundromat, and I make a joke that it's been wishy-washy ever since. But actually, Carl has been a great partner for me. He's a wonderful guy. He doesn't like the limelight. In fact, he went with me to that very first award show at the BMI that we were talking about when I won for Put It Off Until Tomorrow. My Uncle Bill and I had written the song. Well, Carl dressed up in his tuxedo and went with me because I asked him to. That night after that, he said, "Look, this is your life, and I wish you the best, and I want you to have everything you want in this business, but don't ever ask me to go to another one of these things, these wing-dings." And so it's like I joke about in the book, and I never asked him. He's never been. But we have a great relationship, a great friendship, a great love and mutual respect for one another, and he's just a character.
I believe you stated that as long as you live, he will always be your husband.
He will. I'm sure we'll be together till one of us dies, because I can't imagine. You got a picture of him?
Yes,
Look,
I do.
Yeah, somewhere. Are they showing that?
Yeah, that's pretty rare.
Yeah, well,
this is from the book.
Yeah, this is a picture, one of the pictures from the book, and that's not a toupee. That's his real hair. He's got the biggest mop of hair I've ever seen in my life. It's beginning to get a little gray now, but and to get him in a suit, this was another rare occasion. That's what I said. The photographer came out to our house, and he's got one suit that he wears to funerals and weddings, and I begged him to put it on, and so we took some pictures, you know, and so this picture actually is about 5 years old.
Well, how long did you go with him before you got married?
2 years.
Got married May 30th,
in 1966.
You got married in Ringgold, Georgia, didn't you?
Well, we got married because you're one of the few people that knew when we were married that we had been married for a year or so. But Fred Foster at that time had asked me not to marry at the time that Carl and I had planned to marry. And
he was your record producer. He thought it might hurt your record career.
He did. He thought it would be best to wait. So we went that very weekend. I said I would wait for a year. We went that weekend to Ringgold so it wouldn't be in the Tennessee papers. We got our blood tests on the side of the road at a roadside stand. You know, it's like this little town that was set up for that kind of thing. But I wanted to get married in a church, and so they wouldn't marry us we went on a Friday, and we had to wait till Monday because they wanted us to get married there in the courthouse. And I thought, well, I'll never feel like I'm married if I don't get married in church. My mother had gone with us, and she'd made me a little white dress and a little veil. So we came all the way back to Nashville, then drove back the next day, and on Monday morning, and got married in the Ringgold, Georgia Baptist Church. And neither one, we just found a church there, the preacher that would marry us. And so that's where we got married. We got a little wedding picture of that. And so then I came back. My mother was with us. We were going to drop her off in Chattanooga, and she was going to go back to Knoxville up home. And then we were coming back to Nashville because I was on your show that next morning. And so Mama left her pocketbook and her snuff. And so we had to go back to Ringgold to get it. So anyway, by the time we got home, we slept a couple hours.
And then you got up and came and appeared on my television show.
That's right. And 2 hours of honeymooning, and then Ralph. That was my wedding present.
When did you finally get a honeymoon?
A year later. We went to Natchitoches, Mississippi. A year later was the first chance we had, because Carl was working at the time. He and his father owned and operated an asphalt paving company, and that's where he had worked for years. And so he had to work every day, and I was out beating the bushes trying to get things going. And so it was a year later, but it actually has worked out real well. We've just, I don't know, it's just one of those relationships that was meant to be.
Why have you never had children?
Well, actually, I can't have children now. When I first started my career, I wasn't capable or ready to have children, and we had often talked about it, but we didn't really know for sure. I was taking birth control pills, I was gaining weight, and everything that I was doing was making me really feel bad, and the birth control pills was causing me a lot of female problems, a lot of things that I had to have medical treatment for. So eventually, I had surgery, had my tubes tied, so I can't have kids now, and then I felt really guilty and bad about that. It was like I had an abortion or something, although I've never been pregnant in my whole life. But it's like, now I can't have them. I could, I suppose, if I was a little younger, I could have had the microsurgery and had it reversed and I tried, but now I'm too old and cranky.
Let me ask you some questions about Porter Wagoner. You spent 7 years with him.
Mm-hmm.
Porter Wagoner took you to RCA, he put you on his television show, and he did a great deal for you.
Yes, he did. I will always be grateful to Porter. In fact, I saw him just before we started the show today. He was over here doing a matinee at Opryland, and he's going to do some kind of special thing in February, which I'll be part of. But we had our hard times. We had our great times. We had some wonderful duets together. We fought like cats and dogs. But we just disagreed because, you know, we both had dueling dreams. You know, I
love that phrase, dueling dreams.
Well, it kind of was. I wanted to go on and do a lot of things and be in the movies and do big-time television, get different producers. After I had only agreed to stay with Porter's show for 5 years, but I stayed for 7. But I kept wanting to go because I wanted my own band. I didn't want to just stay part of a group, although I was very grateful and will always be indebted to Porter. But we both, you know, had a lot of success because of each other. But it's like Porter just had a hard time accepting it. And I wrote I Will Always Love You about Porter, for Porter, when I left, because I couldn't get him to listen to me. And it's just as simple as this. I wanted to go, and he wanted me to stay. And we just couldn't pull it all together after
When you were doing the duets, did he pick all the songs?
No. We both worked on those things, always. And I wrote a lot of the stuff that we did. And like I say, in the book I say, sometimes I wonder if Porter gets enough credit, sometimes I wonder if he gets too much, because I don't know that Porter even knew that I was that much of a songwriter or that I was as serious about my career as I was at the time. But I will always never deny the fact that without Porter Wagoner, I wouldn't probably be sitting here right now.
It's a very touching moment in the book, and I can feel your pain. When you leave Porter, you decide to leave, and you jump in a cab, and you're out of his life. Of course, I realized later on you had to resolve some other things, but was that when you wrote I Will Always Love You?
No, actually, I had written it during that time.
During the time you were battling?
During that time that I was trying to just, I didn't want Porter out of my life. I was trying to get Porter to let me get different management. I wanted Porter to still work with my records. Porter just wouldn't hear of me having anyone else come in to help manage. I just wanted to have some bigger influences outside of just the country music field. And I wanted Porter to stay involved in my career, but it was either all or nothing. So it was like one of those things to where it was just, everything was a threat. But when I wrote I Will Always Love You, it was when I knew for sure I had to go, because we had really just come up against a block wall. We couldn't even communicate. We weren't getting along. We weren't even being creative. We were just destroying each other emotionally. And so I wrote that. But when I left Porter, there was another song. After we came back to Nashville, after we did have to work out some stuff, and I knew for sure that most of the detail stuff was over and Porter wasn't fighting it anymore, it was such a sad kind of feeling. That was such a sad kind of freedom. It's like there I was free, and it's like, okay, so now what are you going to do? And I was just crying my eyes out. It was raining that day, and I left Porter's office, and it was raining all over, inside and out. And I started singing, It's Been a Long Dark Night, and I've been waiting for the morning. It's been a long, hard fight, but I see a brand new day a-dawning. I've been looking for the sunshine, because I ain't seen it in so long. Everything's going to work out just fine, and everything's going to be all right. It's been all wrong, and I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Then I'll swear to you on my life, just as I started into that part of the song, the rain stopped and the sun came out, and it was like it was my song of deliverance. I just felt like, well, that's my sign. I know that it was time for me to go, and I know that I'm free, and Porter's free. And after that, he was more relieved that I was gone, I'm sure, because he was just tired of hearing about it.
What's the first verse of I Will Always Love You?
If I should stay, I would only be in your way. So I'll go, but I know I'll think of you each step of my way. And you know that one part. Anyway, it's like, but actually when I wrote it, it was like, I hope, it says bittersweet memories. That's all I'm taking with me. Goodbye, please don't cry, because we both know I'm not what you need, but I will always love you, meaning appreciate you too and respect you. And it says, I hope life treats you kind, and I hope you have all you ever dreamed of. I wish you joy and happiness, but above all this, I wish you love. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.
Steel Magnolias.
Well, Steel Magnolias is one of the best movies that I think I've ever been part of. I seem to work so well with women. I love working with the men the best, but my success rate is better with the women. But there were so many wonderful people on that movie, as you know. Julia Roberts, who became like such a spectacular star after that, and Olympia Dukakis, who I've always loved, and Daryl Hannah, and Shirley MacLaine, Sally Field, and me, and who else was in there? Anyway, we just had a great time doing it. And Bobby Harlan, who wrote the story, his sister was a big fan of mine. He's the one that actually wanted me in the movie because she loved the song I Will Always Love You. She's the one he wrote the story about. She's the girl that actually died in real life that Julia played, the part. And I think they played I Will Always Love You at her funeral. So I wanted to do real well because he had wanted me and for his sister. But it was a great experience, except, it was tough. The director, Herbert Ross, who's a great director, has done some wonderful things, but he's kind of tough on me and Julia because he had wanted Meg Ryan to play the part that Julia had, because at that time Julia wasn't that big of a star. And he told me I couldn't act. I said, well, that's no news to me. I said, you didn't hire me because I could act. They hired me because I'm Dolly Parton and I'm a personality. And if you're any kind of a director, then you'll make it look like I'm acting.
One of the key moments in the book is the church on Caton's Road. Tell me about that.
That old church set down below our house had been there for a couple hundred years probably. It was an old abandoned church. It had an old piano that still had keys that worked. And I used to sneak off down there and pray. And it was a place where it had been abandoned. People would go down there and drink. There had been killings there, stabbings, and people would go there and make out at night and, you know, that kind of stuff. And there were all kinds of pictures on the wall, but I still found a sacred place there. And I would go there to pray and to write songs. And it was just a very special place to me. As you can only say when you're really telling the whole story about the feeling of finding God there. That's where I actually felt that I got saved, as they say in our religion, when I had really dedicated myself and knew what that thing, because all my family, everybody would go down, pray in the church. I was always, you know, I never felt that I ever made that communication with God, with all those people looking at me and the boys outside looking at me and everybody making me pray. And so that was actually in an old abandoned church is where I felt that I made my connection with God, and I was baptized shortly after that.
You talk to him a lot, don't you?
Yeah, well, God is my friend, and he understands me. He understands all the silly stuff I do, too. He knows I don't mean no harm. I think God would have to have a sense of humor to put up with us, don't you?
Yes. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this program, spirituality pervades this whole book. And you seem like you lean on him a lot. There was a time when you were very depressed, and you really got into an argument with him, didn't you?
Well, at this particular time in my life that I go into detail of a time in my life that people have been very curious about, I was down, I was depressed, I was sick physically, I was overweight, I was going through a lot of things business-wise with my family, and I just felt like, I'm sure I had turned loose of God, but I thought he'd turned loose of me, and I was just angry because I couldn't get answers. I was just, you know, I just was so depressed and down that I really totally understood how people can get on drugs and alcohol or how people can commit suicide. And I think there's times in everybody's life when you feel like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people live that way day to day, but I had never gone down that far to where I just felt like I was at my wit's end. And I just really had some serious conversations with God, and it reminded me a great deal of that story of the footprints in the sand, the two sets of footprints, and saying, well, you know, and that's when I was carrying you, when I said there was only one set of footprints. And that's kind of how I felt, that I thought God had left me and it was just my footprints in the sand. But actually, I came out of that a much bigger, better human being.
You read the Bible from cover to cover.
Well, that took me 2 months.
But it was part of your therapy, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But I have always read the Bible. I know the Bible very well. I grew up in the church. My grandpa was a preacher, and I've always been very involved in that and work every day, you know, with some sort of scripture. But at this particular time, it was part of the therapy. I thought, well, if I'm going to die, if I'm going to kill myself, I want to read the Bible. I want to know that I have read it from start to finish, not just the New Testament, but I started from the Old Testament, read all the way through the New Testament. And it took me a couple of months to do it, but out of that started, you know, to become this healing and this light and this understanding that I just saw so much about me, so much more about God, so much more about life and other people. And it was really a very healing time, and I've always felt, like I say, that I was so much better off that I had gone through that sorrow. Because sometimes I think we just have to be really slapped down in order to stand up and act right. And maybe I had just got a little too big for my spiritual britches or something.
Let's go for a blatant plug here.
Okay.
The new album is Heart Songs, live from Dollywood. And the album, I believe this is the cover.
It's live from home, yeah.
Yeah,
but
live
it's
from
done
home.
at Dollywood, at the Celebrity Theater.
And you do a lot of old, very old songs, mountain songs that you grew up with.
Yeah, these are songs that I've been trying to do for years. I wrote a lot of these songs too, but they all sound old. The ones that are not old sound old. The ones that I wrote get old. Anyway, that's. But this is something I'm very, very proud of. I grew up with these old songs that are from all the different worlds of music, especially English, Irish, Scottish, and the Welsh background. And so they're songs that we've all loved. The Carter family has made a lot of them famous. And like Thinking Tonight of My Blue Eyes, Alison Krauss and Suzanne Cox did a lot of the harmonies, and Rhonda Vincent and her
I think
brother.
Alison Krauss sounds like you.
We sound so much alike that it is unbelievable. In fact, she's singing on my new single, which is To Daddy, a song I wrote years ago for Emery Harris, but I never got a chance to record it myself. It's going to come out, and we sang so much alike on this that nobody believes that it's not me. They say, oh, that's you. That's not Alison Krauss. I say, it is. And we sound like identical twins. Like the way I used to. She's got that, I mean, I can't sing as good as Alison, but our voice, especially when we're doing harmonies, it's just so much like my young voice.
I didn't know there was a statue.
Oh, that's one of the things I'm the proudest of. That's in the courthouse yard. At our courthouse there is a statue, a bronze statue that the county, that Sevier County, the school kids and the people made up the money and put up. So that makes it twice as special. These little kids were saving their pennies and doing whatever, and it's real big. They don't even have John Sevier in the courthouse. He's the one that founded the town. They just have me in the courthouse yard. So I'm as proud of that thing as anything. Dollywood and the statue is like kind of like a tribute to my home, to my family, and Dollywood has just meant so much to me and to the people of that area. And it's like they say you can't go home again. Well, I say you can, and we've proved it with Dollywood.
Isn't this a response to all of the people you have tried to help in Sevier County and in your Tennessee mountain area? I know that you have been involved. The Dollywood Foundation has paid for kids to go to college, and you've given them jobs at Dollywood, of course. You've really tried to help those people.
Well, it's been a wonderful business venture, but actually it's more than that. We get so many people. Well, first of all, the Great Smoky Mountains, as you know, is the most visited national park in the United States. 10 million people every year come through the park. We're beginning to get like a couple of million people coming in and out of Dollywood. But the thing that we're proudest of is the jobs that it's created there. More hotels, more restaurants, more businesses have gone up since Dollywood started. And we just, we have many jobs for many people, and that makes me feel great. But the Dollywood Foundation is for the education of the kids. We do a lot of work for the medical needs of the county as well. And the Dr. Robert F. Thomas Foundation, who's the doctor that delivered me, I do what I can for them. They work very hard and do a lot of things there. They have several things at the hospital there that we work on and help with. But what I'm proudest of is helping the kids, the dropout rate. We help the kids to study. We have a hotline where if kids don't have clothes to wear, if they have problems at home or they're having problems with workbooks or money, we try to help them in every way we can to keep them in school. For a person that hated school as much as me, to try to keep others in school, but I know how important it is.
Well, I was going to say, haven't you slowed the dropout rate in school there?
Well, it has, considerably. We have helped a great deal. But it's not just me. There are many people that work very hard at the foundation, but it makes me feel so proud because I think if you are in a position where you can help, you should help. And it ain't all about Dolly Parton. There's a whole lot of stuff, and I'm in a good position to help, but it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm giving back so much of what has been so generously given to me. Well, I want to be remembered as a person that worked very hard at what I did, accomplished a great deal, had a great deal of love for mankind, did the best I could under all the conditions that I worked under. And I just want to be thought of as fun and pleasurable. Somebody asked me, said, what do you want people to say about you 100 years from now? I said, I want them to say, boy, she looks good for her age. Is that the one you wrote?
I must tell you, I've read this book. I heartily recommend it to you.
You hardly recommend it, or
heartily.
you highly? You now get that straight. You can sell a lot of books or not.
With great gusto, I recommend it to all of you. Dolly Parton, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. Dolly, thank you.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Dolly Parton.
Thank